I was actually hoping this would come up. So I had a really silly acquisition of thousands of followers on Instagram. If you know, you know, and I'll explain it. The video has been archived because I was getting too many notifications. So around the end of last year, my roommate Naila and I planned a duo show of photography, found objects, and stained glass work called Public Sex. And before the show, my mom had sent me this ridiculous video that her sister had taken up in the Panhandle. And she was driving past a family friend's house, and there was a nutcracker, like blow-up nutcracker. And for some reason, the wind made it look like it was doing something really inappropriate, some little self-love, if you know what I mean. And I told my mom, I was like, please let me post this. It will go like triple platinum viral. And so the Shed Show amassed sort of a large following from that ludicrous video. And it actually, I see it as falling in line with programming because our show, Public Sex, was a lot about sex positivity and sharing these things and taking the shame out of that context. But that's kind of my silly response to your question of bringing in audiences. The more serious response is like going out, building networks, and I think networking can get a bad rap. I see networking as like establishing relationships. I also see that as a job of a curator outside of the artwork. You are establishing relationships with artists, you are building that trust, letting them know that you can help them visualize their dreams and visualize what they want to bring to the forefront. But yeah, I'd be interested to hear from other folks their sort of acquisition of audiences.
I'll jump in. I guess Cheerleader's next show will be a big inflatable nutcracker.
Yes.
Actually, it's a great question, but I don't think about it too much. I really have all my faith in the art. I even believed this back in Rockaway in 2014. I felt like if I build something cool, people will come. And I didn't know if that would work, but you know, people would travel. 99% of the people who came to my shows in Rockaway Beach lived in Brooklyn or Manhattan. And then my next space was in Amsterdam, New York, an hour, like 20 minutes north of Hudson, and people came. So I started to have faith in if I put on good shows, people will come. And yeah, if people didn't come, I wouldn't want to do it. You know, it feels really good that, you know, people are coming and I feel a sense of community around my space. And it's very social for me. I'm not a social person except for art. I go to openings, I put on openings, and that's really it. I work at my studio, I watch sports, and but yeah, I appreciate everyone who's come to my space. If you haven't, come.
I also really love this question because my viewership has changed drastically depending on where I've done the show. So I feel like my first show really came from like, I was trying to spread the word through like press and Dallas Art Fair. It all kind of like was orchestrated at the same time. The second show was kind of my favorite audience. It was at the Texas Theater in this like little room upstairs where they normally have like a VHS room and like kind of like fake, you know, Blockbuster type of room. And so people would come up maybe expecting to see that, and then there was this room of like art with a table of books, and they were so confused. And at the time they were screening In the Mood for Love, a restoration. So some of those people really understood this. And then they were screening lots of Superman. Superman families would come up to this show that was kind of about Texas blues music and all this stuff, and they were just kind of like, what? But my goal in doing all of this is like, I do want the art spaces to be able to be engaged with from any of those people, like someone who's just going to see Superman, or you know, someone who's there to actually engage with the work. Which on the flip side, I actually, in that show, it's like someone who helped start the Armadillo World headquarters came from Austin, because like I was talking about something that happened, you know, in the 70s in Austin, and they saw that I cared about it, and so then they came out. And so that's been another really cool flip side of people who this was like part of their life, their upbringing, part of maybe even their job, their interests that have happened like up to 50 years ago. They'll come around and be like, oh, I'm so glad you care about this. You're of a different generation. Like, this is exciting to me.
One thing I wanted to talk to is as far as growing our network. we've benefited so much from our partnerships. There's one thing that was such a pleasant surprise in starting a nonprofit is that immediately every other nonprofit organization or personality that we meet would just be so willing to help, like for no reason. Like you mentioned 4 Down earlier as one of the spaces, like they quite literally like incubated us our first few months. To this day, I'm not sure why. Like, I think they were just understood that they believed in our mission and they wanted to help out in any way. And so we've tried to pay that forward. And with each connection, we kind of share networks. I mean, everybody here in Cedars Union has been another great, I mean, that handsome gentleman in the back, Taylor, has been such a great connection for us. And he literally just, I guess, just by understanding what we're doing and being passionate about our mission, offered as an extension of Cedars Union a show that's currently up here in the Bodecker. And I think it's just these little people that understand that it takes a village to make any of our organizations work. Like eventually all of those communities kind of blend together and we all share our audiences.
I think right now, because my space is relatively new, I don't have a set way to advertise to people or have like a set audience of people other than the people that I forced to go, which is my friends and my boyfriend. But I think that with every show that I have, it brings more people that end up coming back, and that ends up becoming a quite big like, variety of people. My first show that I had at 2 Bed 1 Bath was Alexandra Holsey, who is a former coworker of mine and a really good friend of mine, who is very well connected in the art world. So I had colleagues of mine that came to that show, friends of mine that came to that show, and sardined into my my living room. But the next show that I had was with an artist named Nate Bishara, and he takes Polaroid photos and Instax photos of queer nightlife around Dallas and Fort Worth, DFW just in general. And I had, people come from the Leather Daddy bar that's in the Design District, and it brings a lot of diverse groups of people to the space. And I think that that's how I just want to continue to advertise, is that whoever the artist brings, they end up coming back, which I'm really fortunate to experience. And I think also too, with my space being in a residential area in an apartment complex, I leave my front door open, so neighbors come by and stick their heads in, and it's an open invite to people, I guess.
Yeah, to sort of fully answer that question, I think it's the approachability of unconventional spaces. I think it feels much more familiar. It's not so sterile and uncomfortable. You feel welcomed in. Like, this is a home. This is a shed. This is a different building than like a straight up gallery. And I think that's what brings in audiences and keeps retaining audiences. Like, I know a shed show, like we've got a large community of like waiters and servers that come constantly, like people from 7 Mile Cafe in Denton, like are always there, like from Graffiti Pasta. Like we get a lot of those people, and if they're not working that night, they can make the opening. But yeah, thank you for that question on audiences. No, we have another reason.
I would love to hear something about one of your most unconventional challenges, something a little out of the box, and how you dealt with that. And Jillian,
Yeah, so the question was, what was one of the biggest challenges?
give me quirky, give me weird.
Quirky.
Something that only you in an unconventional space might have to deal with, and how you handle that.
Okay, give me a moment. If anyone's got it, you ready? Okay.
I think my biggest challenge is probably coming up. I won't say who the artist is or when the show is, but I'm talking to someone, an artist who's in Western Massachusetts and has been making paintings for horses. And we're gonna do a show together called Paintings for Ponies. And I'm gonna have some ponies, so it'll be next spring, but we're starting to figure that out now. and I don't know if I get in trouble, but I have this, like big barn doors, and we could put up a little fence. So that's the first thing that comes to mind.
I have one too. I don't. The show that I have, the last show that I had put on was called Suck Bang Blow, and it was a show put on by an artist duo named Charlie Sable. And one of the artists is a tattoo artist. He's done most of my tattoos, has done most of my partner's tattoos. And I, from that show, have thought up of a show that I'm going to try to have up in the summertime, of a survey of contemporary tattooing and how that relates to contemporary art. And I want them to tattoo in my apartment, but I don't know anything about bloodborne diseases, or I don't know anything about needles or how that would work. So that is what I'm currently trying to figure out right now.
We got a big mosquito problem in my place. So if anyone has tips or tricks, I need to handle that expeditiously. We had a noise complaint once, but by the time the cops showed up, it was funny because Ryan and I have a tendency to throw sexy shows, and I do this show called Garden Panty, and we got a noise complaint, and the cops showed up, and I was practically in my underwear, and I had to walk up to him, and I was like, "This is just an art show. This is just an art show. This isn't a party. This is just an art show." And he was like, "Oh, it's cool. I don't hear anything." But yeah, so that's kind of quirky. I don't know. Yeah.
I can speak to, just generally speaking, I think everything, we thrive in derelict spaces. That's our bread and butter. And when working in those spaces, we often have to think about, oh, what if someone falls in a hole? How do we protect ourselves from that? So I feel every show we have, I feel comes with a liability waiver, which is very on brand for Easyside. I think of another one we had recently with one of our studio members, Cheryl and I. She had a performance at, I don't know if any of y'all were there, but she essentially dressed up as, I'm probably gonna butcher the concept, but these otherworldly, six-teated ants. Yeah, and is Cheryl, oh, there you go. Okay, yeah, okay, so Cheryl, yeah, I didn't know Cheryl was here. Sorry if I'm butchering this, but so there was it's this performance where essentially they are her and her partner Diane both dressed up as these almost Tony Clifton characters, where they're just prodding and being nuisances to the people there. So we're still a young organization. We're trying to grow. Meanwhile, we have community members driving up to Easyside, and there's these people dressed up as ants with massive boobs, and and so very serious. And so we just don't know what that dynamic is going to look like when you're trying to get people to come back for the next show. And anyway, that's my bit.
Yeah, I thought of one. My first show, I decided to put an art car in the back of the gallery. And the driveway that the art car had to go up, it was a 1971 Buick Centurion, so it's an 18-foot long car, it's wide. Luckily, the towing guy who brought it, because the car didn't drive, was really good. He had 1.5 inches clearance on either side to get in that driveway. Because the driveway is old enough, it's from the early 1900s, it was for horses. So him getting that car in, and then because it was springtime here in Dallas, it's very wet. The inside of the car was always getting wet, it was very moldy, and so I would have to, as part of my daily opening of the gallery, go clean off the car and give it basically a little car wash every day. And I was like, how is this my life? How is this an art gallery job? But yeah, it's when I fully realized I'm insane, so it's good. Yeah.
Great. Do we have any other questions? Is there anything you think are sort of cultural institutions, and be them academic or museums, could learn from the work you all?
Thank you, Lucia. I was actually going to say with partnerships earlier in audiences, Ryan and I worked at Dallas Contemporary, and we both had ample opportunity, even before like our spaces kind of got more fleshed out, to like contribute to programming in different ways. Ryan had run like a performance workshop. I sort of helped organize several workshops with artist friends of mine, but recently with the Dallas Art Book Fair, I kind of nudged my way in because Gio Delchin, who kind of oversees the Dallas Art Book Fair, was looking to do satellite events with different organizations in Dallas, Fort Worth, and Denton. And I was like, the Shed Show would love to be a part of that. And we hosted a bookmaking workshop at Or a Coffee, who's kind of become another one of our partners, offering their space for free to host these events. But the question again, it was like,
Yeah, what can they learn from what you do?
okay, yeah, what can they learn from what we do? I think the scrappiness and like finding ways to make it work where you're not exploiting your laborers, but you're giving incentive as to why you should be making this happen. I think there's a way, because like the team that helps me, like it's all kind of like an in-kind donation. It's a labor of love, and there's like an immense passion to make it happen. It's not necessarily like a responsibility that has such a heavy weight, but it's like we get to do this thing. And I don't really know how that's like adopted into like an cultural institutional dynamic, but I think that there's gotta be ways that it can enter in.
I think that, especially with like my experience working in institutions, some of the takeaway that I get is that I think that a lot of institutions can learn to trust in the people that are in the communities that work for their spaces. Something that I really loved that happened at the Modern was the show in the parking lot, and I was like, this is so cool. Like, I love the concept of this whole show, and that it was all local educators. And I think that when institutions trust in their employees and trust in the people that they contract out to do good work for them, good things will come, and successful things will come. I think that they just gotta trust us to do the things that we're actually like passionate about doing.
Just a really quick piggyback is just being more community forward. I mean, the lovely person who asked that question did a wonderful job doing that during her tenure recently at DC, and I do feel like more institutions need to just remind themselves that their spaces are for everyone and not for the very few that have maybe the wallet that could buy the piece on the wall, but rather just like inviting everybody in the city to really enjoy everything together and not be exclusive about it.
Yeah, I think I have more of just an observation than an answer to your question. I don't have a lot of experience collaborating with institutions, especially being pretty new in Dallas. I opened in November. But I have noticed from my other spaces, the bigger galleries and institutions are watching the smaller DIY spaces. And, I hope that continues, because what I found really satisfying was, I can't provide a lot for my artists. I could give them a light on the resume in a show, but someone else can come in and, make their career. And I watched that happen with Anna Glantz and Topless. And at the time, she went by Lori Kane, but now Lotus Kane. She was in the Whitney Biennial and the New Museum Triennial. I showed her with 2 other Canadian artists in 2016. And I'm like, oh, people are watching, and that actually helps sustain me. I want to keep going because I watch my artists go on and do big things and make money and have important shows and can develop as an artist. Yeah, good question.
Yeah, thank you, Lucia. I think kind of going along with what I'm aiming to do with my space, like just kind of involving and educating more on like local histories. I find it to be a really good way to get people excited is to be like, you know what happened right here a while ago? Like listen to all these like cool people who've come through here and done all this stuff. Because I personally, like growing up here in Dallas, didn't know almost anything about our local art scene. You know, I kind of wish the DMA had like a permanent installation of some of these like really important figures who were making work here like 100 years ago. Yeah, that's kind of my one little add-on.
Okay. One more of it. Any other questions? Yeah? Okay.
Hi, for like the half century, we've had a lot of artists using alternative spaces as their creative practice, such as their social practice or radical hospitality practice or even relational aesthetic practice. So I'm curious, for the artists on the panel who are also doing these curatorial projects, do you believe that these two items are separate, or are you doing this as creative practice?
Thank you for that question. I've had like big imposter syndrome with calling myself an artist, and I finally had to like talk to myself in the mirror and be like, everything you do is an output of your creativity, whether it's organizing a show, curating a show, speaking with artists, writing, doing a little embroidery when I have like a spare moment to embroider. Like, I had to stop like saying, oh, I'm not really an artist, like I'm more of a curator, because it was stopping me from being able to continue producing more things. And once I made that shift in my mind, I was like, oh wait, like the Shed Show is not just going to be an exhibition space, we're also going to build a library. We're going to build a bookstore. These things are going to take time, but like that's going to be my craft, is to build something that can be shared with everyone. Which goes in line with how your question spoke to like social work within these spaces. I think it's a service to the community. Like, yes, we have a deep desire to show these things because it's so cool and it's fun and it's very rewarding, but like, once you get to the viewer's perspective of it, it opens up a whole other world of possibilities. But yeah, the artist and curator, I think very interdisciplinary, very, very interdisciplinary. Like none of these titles are like isolated in their own way. Like they fuse with each other and they go hand in hand. Like I often think we need like a new word to like fully describe the umbrella of like what it means to like organize DIY spaces and like being like so scrappy. But yeah.
I think that so I was an artist first before I had any interest in curating shows, and I think that they go hand in hand, and then they are like one of the same at the same time. I don't know how to describe it, as they are two separate things, but also they are the same thing at the same time. Yeah. I think that with making my own installations and having to have like site-specific installations for different exhibitions has really informed how I view how to install other people's work, and I hope that it is beneficial to my curatorial like vision or whatever. But I think that it is all kind of a big like circle of things that work together, you know, like you have to have a creative like bone in your body in order to curate, and anybody can be an artist, so a curator could be an artist, and an artist can be a curator. It's all one big like circle of life, you know.
I mean, I almost verbatim agree with all of that. I also feel like there's just not enough time to separate the two. Like, I'm often painting at the same time I'm trying to send an email. So I just think in my head they exist like on the same plane. But I think where it really merges and is beneficial is like we invited Jillian to curate a show at Easyside not too long ago, and I'd be lying if I didn't say that probably didn't help me get a show at your place. You had some introduction to me working with me, and I think there's a comfort there. So I think there's times where the curatorial work or the space work then feeds back into your practice.
Yeah, I guess I'm a little different. I keep it, that's also a good question. I keep it very separate. You know, I chose my name because it allowed me to stay anonymous. I love that it's more cheerleaders, you know, stereotypically more feminine. Someone's not going to be in my space and think that's cheerleader. I really like the anonymity, and I won't say horrified, but when this event posted, you know, my photo, I'm like, oh God, my anonymity is blown. And I don't even have Instagram for my own art. You know, for me, actually, I feel very lucky. I feel like it's a split personality. I go back and forth between curating and being a gallerist and then making art. And after doing both for 10 years, I've figured out what works for me, and that's to have Instagram presence for the gallery, not for myself. I like the mystery of both. Like, I'm still getting shows and people can tag me and galleries will post me, but I like that I can operate as a gallerist, and some people might not know I have this whole other life that's actually, you know, been going for longer. Yeah, interesting to think about.
Yeah, I'm someone, I don't have like a studio practice, but I've always been conflicted because I'm like, I totally identify with artists. Am I an artist? What is this? And I recently was reading this great biography of Walter Hopps, the curator, helped start the Manil. And it opened with an artist asking him that very question, like, do you ever see yourself as an artist? And he said, you know, I see myself as a part of a business that goes back 25,000 years, and somebody had to find the cave and hold the torch. And I was like, yes, that's it. I always think about cave paintings, you know, we were all there.
All right, I think we can do one more question if anybody has one. Okay.
Burnout. How do you deal with burnout?
Burnout. Opening receptions at the Shed Show feel a lot like a party. They've been described as like a house party, and it's funny because like I didn't do much partying growing up. I was raised Catholic, and so my parents were like, you can drink at home with us, it's fine. But I think that you have to like celebrate after you do all the hard work. When I have moments of free time, it's entirely devoted to the Shed Show or to rest. I've also been doing quite a bit more traveling this past month than I typically do, and it was kind of work-related, but also relaxing. I went to Galveston to visit the Galveston Artist Residency for the Festival of the Beautiful. I did studio visits with the artists. That's going to culminate in an article I'm writing later this year. But it was like, we were just like on island time. We were chilling, but we were doing art things that also are going to turn into work down the line. Like one of the artists in residence down there, Cedars, who I've known for years and years. We went to college together. She has a Shed Show later this year. That will be a culmination of a lot of the work that she's done during the residency. So kind of like cross-pollination of like mixing the pleasure and the work and finding that balance. I recently went to Austin with some friends, and we went to Hippie Hollow. If you know what Hippie Hollow is, you can just relax, and it's very freeing there, and clothes are optional. I think you have to find these moments to relax. But while we were in Austin, we visited these really radical bookstores. One's called Monkey Wrench, the other one was called Book Woman, and they both like specialize in like sharing social advocacy resources for free or for really accessible rates. And that's something that the Shed Show is starting to build and develop on. There will be more updates soon, I swear. But yeah, I've kind of been turning. I've been trying to find a lot of alignment and balance lately because the burnout does hit. And when you get this sense of like overwhelm, everything gets really existential and crumbly. But I just like center back on the work that I'm doing, the work that we're doing, and how important and valuable it is to the people around us. And it's always great to hear feedback about how it's valuable, about how it can operate better and more efficiently. always offer your help to a project space, because you never know how you could like squeeze in. Like on this trip to Austin, my close friend Annie Burton, who's trying to get into conservation work, I was like, you know, I have art that I like have in my personal collection. Do you just want to be our conservator for it? Like it can just give you an opportunity to work with things at a low stakes, like just like finding those entries. But I don't know, like balance. That's why I had to say like a way of living. Like running a project space starts to feel like a way of being. It becomes fully integrated into everything I feel.
I think that the way that I deal with burnout is talking to my therapist. I have a hard time disassociating my work, both in my day job and in my artistic practice and my curatorial practice. I have a hard time disassociating that from like me when I'm just like a person. And so a lot of the stresses of all of that tend to really burn me out really fast. And I had to learn that the hard way with my second show that I put up, one with Nate Bashara and the Instack photos. The day of the opening came and I had to like have my boyfriend take the wheel for the first hour of being like, okay, you are now 2 bed, 1 bath, and I'm gonna go like lay in my bed and cry for a little bit. Because it became so compounded and I didn't know how to handle it. So I don't think I have an answer for that now because I'm still trying to figure out how to deal with burnout. Because I just want to go and like try to put out as much work as possible. But I'm also a human being, so that, you know, I have to remember that sometimes and remember that I'm just like one person and rely on the people that are there to help, because there are people that are there to like take the reins if you need it. So yeah, I'm still trying to figure that out myself.
I personally just benefit a lot from our internal Easyside community and then our friends. I mean, I feel like if Easyside was a one-man operation, it would have lasted a week. Like really, there's so many people in this audience even have probably helped us. I think of Carrie Iverson, who's here, one of our newest studio members. Quite literally, none of us had the bandwidth to do any of the merch or printmaking stuff for the show that's up, and she just took it upon herself to do it. So it's just little things like that that make the internal individual burnout that much easier and worth it too, because you know that everybody else is kind of chipping in and you're like all burned out together, and somehow that makes it better. But yeah, no, and then just like being able to do stuff, even though it's hard work and it requires a lot of time and energy, if you're doing it with your friends, it's also fun. It's like, it's work and play at the same time.
Yeah, I don't know. I surprisingly don't get too burned out. I think for a long time I just thought about the phrase, if you want something done, give it to a busy person. And that's I kind of have one speed. You know, workaholism is probably my biggest vice. Yeah, but I'll give you one weird, really specific example. Maybe once a month I'm like, I'm cooked, I need to do nothing. And I guess it was Wednesday, I told my family I couldn't go to the Passover dinner, and I stayed in bed from 5 to 8. I'm like, oh, my dad's gonna hate me. But I took a nap. I'm like, I'm recharged. I could go hard for another month. But yeah, I'm still working on self-care.
Yeah, same here on all of those. I probably have like one day a month where I don't leave my bed. Like I just am like, oh, I hit a wall, and I'm not gonna leave my bed for the whole day. But same on the like, really, it's such a tricky space to be in where it's like really hard to separate kind of like social and like work, because it's all of the work kind of has like social aspects to it. Studio visits are really fun. They're kind of like hanging out for 2 hours, but it's also kind of business. And then it's like I'm mainly doing like computer work in the morning or at night, because during the day I'm like having to talk to people or like be at the gallery, and there's like not a lot of time to do even the administrative stuff. So it is really tricky to avoid burnout. But I think just like staying present and positive has been really helpful, and not like falling into this trap of being like, I have too much, my hair's on fire. But yeah, literally just like being like, oh, I'm so lucky that this is my life, and like asking for help when you really do feel like you can't do it all. And that's kind of as simple as that.
But I want to thank everyone for being here. I hope you enjoyed this, and especially thank our panelists. Everybody be sure to check out each of these spaces ASAP as soon as you can get out there. I also want to thank the Cedars again for being such an amazing co-host. And I do want to give a shout out to the Eugene McDermott Foundation, whose support of both Texas Vignette and the CU has been a big part of this programming and many more programming from both organizations in the future. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.